looking at a big story here now. The projection from NBC News is the Republicans are going to win 250 seats in the House of Representatives, which is 435 seats overall. This is 4 seats greater than their largest majority in history, which they had back following World War II when they broke into the Fair Deal in 1946. This is an extraordinary development here. I expect everybody here to notice. I want to go into Steve now. Steve Schmidt, this is going to be the headline in the big papers tomorrorow, sweeping both houses of Congress. And this 250 thing, we haven't paid much attention to it tonight. This is 32 points over a majority vote. You don't need, so Boehner, however he's going to use it, will have some padding here, some padding. I don't know how many wild people there are. He has some very nasty words he uses for them, but they're out there. Can he work around them now, or is he still a prisoner of them, as you said?
Look, I think it remains to be seen. I think one of the interesting aspects of this, and this was Washington's admonition as he left office, there's the warning of the danger of faction in the country. And we have something in the House of Representatives called the Hastert Rule, which means that no vote is put forward unless it's supported by a majority of the majority. We're not a parliamentary system in this country. The parties didn't used to be as homogenous as they are. But on issues like immigration reform, for example, and I think it's in the long-term best interest of the Republican Party, will Boehner allow for there to be coalitions of a majority of Republicans and Democrats able to pass legislation out of the House that's popular with the American people, to send it to the Senate and to the president's desk? He has 250 seats, but is he going to be controlled and ruled over and dictated to by a small minority of his conference, or is he going to assert his prerogatives of Speaker of the House? And I think that that is one of the dramas that's going to unfold over the next couple of years.
Let me make a case to you as a Republican on immigration reform. As long as your party, and I know you don't believe in it, you just said you don't, as long as your party's intransigent and opposes any kind of path to citizenship, you will never get an immigration bill that's enforced that has any teeth. You'll always have people coming in this country to work in hotels or wherever else because they're cheap labor. In fact, the most recent arrivals, the cheapest and maybe the best labor. So there's always going to be a market for it. You're never going to change that basic market situation until you have a bill that's enforceable. And you'll never get that unless you give the Democrats what they need, which is a compassionate treatment of the people who have been here for a number of years. Do the Republicans know that they'll never be able to enforce? We will always have people racing across the border for jobs. It'll never stop until you have a new bill. Do they know that?
I live in a Western state. It's self-evident if you live in a Western state, a border state, near the border. The reality is, I think that there are many, many Republicans who understand this. You have the 12 members of the Senate that voted for immigration reform. You have many members of the House that support it. And you also overwhelmingly have a majority of actual Republican voters in the country who think that this issue should be dealt with in a common sense and humane way. You know, this issue has been held hostage by a small minority in the House of Representatives, to the great detriment of the long-term political interests of the Republican Party.
What do they want us to do with people here illegally?
I think at the end of the day, they have an unrealistic and almost delusional expectation that somehow these people will go home, that they'll self-deport or we'll deport them. But it's fantastical. It's not based in reality. And look, at the end of the day, when you look at immigration reform, we have zero net immigration really coming over the border. Most of the illegal immigration in the country is from visa overstays now. And if you want to look at immigration reform from the perspective of stopping the flow of economic migration across the border, the most significant thing in the long history of this issue between our two countries happened in the last 18 months, which is the privatization of the Mexican oil industry. Mexico is about to be a very rich, very wealthy country with a lot of economic growth. And as Mexico's economic growth rates go up, we'll see those immigration levels come down.
Okay.
We've got a call right now in a governor's race that we've been watching very closely. In the Maine governor's race, we've got a call. NBC News now projecting that Republican incumbent Governor Paul LePage has been reelected in a three-way race there against Democrat Mike Michaud and the independent Elliott Cutler, who sort of half dropped out of the race last week, but not entirely. And his name was still on the ballot, and he was polling as of our most recent numbers tonight at 8%. The other outstanding governor's races races at this point. By my count, still Connecticut and Colorado outstanding. Steve Kornacki, what do we know about those?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at Colorado now. This is John Hickenlooper, the incumbent Democrat, trying to win a second term. This is a nail-biter at this hour right now. You see Hickenlooper trailing Bob Beaupre, the Republican, by 7,000 votes. A couple things to tell you about this, but first, let's take a look at the map. What Democrats are hopeful for right now as you start right here. This is Denver, biggest city in the state, big Democratic area. You can see the number that Hickenlooper's getting here tonight. 80% more of an estimate, but there is outstanding vote here, so there's an opportunity for Hickenlooper to make up some ground here. Also, we can look in the suburbs of Denver to the east of Denver. This is Adams County. Take a look at the outstanding vote here. Only about 2/3 reporting right now. Slight Hickenlooper lead. This is sort of a classic swing county. Hickenlooper slightly ahead. He could make up a little ground here. At the same time, though, Bob Beaupre has some of his strong areas out. We can look right here. This tells you a lot about how the night is going. This is El Paso County. It's mostly all in right now. El Paso County is the home of Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs, focus on the family, the Air Force Academy, military, cultural conservatism. This is the number you're seeing here for Beaupre tonight. The reason he is leading right now, this is fantastic for Republicans, what they were able to do in El Paso County tonight. And really, when you're talking about this area, Colorado Springs area, this is the story of where things politically started to go wrong for the Democrats under Hickenlooper in Colorado, because it was the Democratic state Senate president from Colorado Springs who, with Hickenlooper, pushed through gun control legislation. And then last year, that state Senate president in his El Paso County district was recalled from office. In hindsight, that was the warning shot, so to speak. And then tonight, you see again the Republican base here really energized for this. But here's the most important thing to tell you about Colorado. If we look back at the overall result right now, we don't have the, well, that's not how you do it. Let's see if this does it. Here it is. We don't have the decimal points here, but what this works out to right now, it's changed again. It's down to 5,000 votes. This is about 48.1. This is about 47.8. The law in Colorado, if you are within 0.5%, and this is right now, if you're within 0.5% when these are all counted, there's an automatic recount.
Fascinating. You know, on that Colorado Springs region, as we were talking about there was another House race there that was very interesting tonight. The big high-profile House race in Colorado was, of course, Mike Coffman versus Andrew Romanoff. Republican Mike Coffman was able to win in that race tonight. But the other one that I thought was interesting was actually a very conservative district in and around Colorado Springs. Doug Lamborn, the Republican incumbent representing that district, not a military veteran. It's the third most military district in the nation. He was running against a retired Air Force general named Irv Halter. And right at the beginning of the campaign, a tracker drops a video that shows Doug Lamborn saying that he's been secretly working to get U.S. military generals to quit the U.S. military in order to make a statement against President Obama. And he's been working on this behind the scenes, trying to get generals to quit in wartime. Irv Halter, who was the Democrat who ran against Doug Lamborn, was not able to pull it out. It's a really conservative district, and Doug Lamborn was reelected. But I have a feeling that Irv Halter is going to run for something else sometime soon.
Rob, did you want to get
one thing that, you know, when you see that 250 in the House come up behind you guys, you're starting to get really big numbers that aren't going to get turned in a cycle or two cycles. And, we haven't gone through these numbers, but my guess is that Republicans picked up state legislatures, which are the pathway ultimately to cementing these gains through redistricting in a cycle or two. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, again, to get back to 218 for the Democrats it's not a one-trick deal anymore. That's what they banked on. That's what they were banking on when they put together this campaign. Build out enough of a moat around the House that even a Hillary victory will not give her control of the House, and therefore the ability to legislate.
Well, one of the things that, you know, as we started out the evening listening to Steve Israel, the chairman of the DCCC, talk about the fact that your average midterm loss, or in the 6th year of a presidency, is 29 seats, and that may be the case. But that occurred in an era where there were more than 20 competitive races. And, you know, Rahm Emanuel, I think, had the best line I've ever heard anybody talk about with regard to the problems we have with redistricting, which is we used to live in a country where the voters pick the politicians. We now live in a country where the politicians pick the voters. And, you know, with 20 competitive House seats per cycle, it's very difficult to flip the House from 250 seats.
And just the sheer number of swing seats out of 435 is just a small number, which makes it almost impossible to get stuff done.
MSNBC's coverage of this historic election night, I got to tell you, is going to continue in just a few minutes when Ari Melber is going to take over through the night as results still continue to come in. I'm Rachel Maddow along with Chris Matthews.
Hi.
And Chris Hayes and Casey Hunt. And Ari is about to change seats. As we said, several races are still outstanding, so do not go anywhere. We'll be right back live.